Importance is a hard thing to quantify, right? It used to be that I felt I could accurately measure something's importance in brads. So, for example, the God of War franchise is likely as important to the whole world as about 1,000 brads, whereas one solitary me is probably slightly more important to the world than the Destiny games. But as I started my fledgling YouTube career, my sense of self-worth predictably took a massive hit as very angry Redditors frequently took turns anonymously slapping my self-esteem right in its sad little face with their tiny angry penises. And as a result, I no longer believe brads to be a worthwhile metric for measuring importance, and thus I've elected to be boring and instead use factors like context, cultural significance, and impact instead. I know, very pedestrian. Blame Reddit. I am now going to present you with what I believe to have been the 5 most important games of the 2010s in reverse order, largely based on how they changed the industry going forward rather than sales or worldwide popularity. The Call of Duty games sell a lot all the time, but are any of the ones that came out this decade that important? If we didn't have them, would the industry be as different as it's been made by the 5 I'm about to present you with? I don't think so, obviously. Otherwise I would have put them on the list. Before I continue, it's worth stressing the subjectivity of a topic like this. Importance is an extremely subjective concept, and so in order to placate some of the most pedantic YouTube commenters, I am going to go over some honourable mentions in the hopes of avoiding even one "Am I a joke to you?" comment. Seriously, I get so many comments in this specific format, it's really weird. Is that just me? Is it just me? Am I the only one who gets these? I mean, Jesus. Find a new meme format. Hey, it's time to look into things too much. Pokemon Go was a pretty big deal. The week Pokemon Go came out, I was actually visiting an old friend in Berkshire, where I used to live. We were supposed to spend the 4 or so days I was down there hanging out and catching up and shooting the breeze, and we did a lot of that, but what we, a pair of strapping young lads in our early 20s, did more of that week was catch Pokemon. There were numerous times where we'd be lounging around on the sofas just kind of lazily staring into space on a hot summer's day, and then we'd slowly turn to each other. Our eyes would meet, and we'd share a knowing glance. We both silently understood that for the 4th time today, we were about to go back out and catch Pokemon on our phones. And I am aware that with the way I describe it, it sounds like there was a lot of sexual tension between us, and I promise that wasn't my intention. I mean, he is very handsome, he works out a lot, he's got very big arms. Pokemon Go was a phenomenon, the biggest thing to come to mobile phones since Google's giant bloodshot app tracking eyeballs. You don't need me to give you any stats, you know what a success it was. It swept over the entire world, burnt out millions of phone batteries, and you were probably a part of it, at least for the first few weeks or so. Hell, there's likely a lot of you that are very much still a part of it today. Pokemon Go is the most significant step forward that AR or augmented reality games have ever seen. Augmented reality meaning games that take place in the real world but layer computer generated game elements over it. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. Let's have a chat about it once you finish killing Sephiroth in Burger King. One of the many games I'll be talking about today that I haven't actually played myself, everything I've heard about Mass Effect 2 leads me to believe that it had a mass effect, please acknowledge this, on the games industry as a whole, particularly in what we hold as the gold standard for Western RPGs. I've heard all about the suicide mission, how your decisions and relationships carry over to the next game, and all the aliens you can bang, and I've seen plainly how it put BioWare on the map as a big deal. I definitely think it, much like my Mass Effect pun, deserves acknowledgement. Please timestamp the pun in a comment and tell me what a great job I did. I could really use it right now. The Witcher 3 is a curious case of a game being really good, but not necessarily as important as its overwhelmingly positive critical reception might suggest. Let me just make one thing abundantly clear, okay? I'm not wrong about many things. When I'm wrong, it's an event, like my birthday or my dad speaking to me. But I was wrong about The Witcher 3, and thank God, because my birthday in 2019, when I first played this game, was shit. And a game being much better than I thought it was based on my first few hours with it is the least the universe owes me. I enjoyed The Witcher 3 a lot more than I thought I was going to based on its, in my opinion, pretty rocky start. I get the acclaim and the praise that's lavished upon this game. Hell, if I'd played it completely blind along with everyone else when it first came out in 2015, I can imagine it might be one of my favourites of all time. But when I'm trying to look at how important it is, how it changed things, all I can really see is more of an ending than a beginning, you know? The Witcher 3 feels more like a conclusion to all the other open world RPGs that came and went in the years leading up to it than a beginning or the start of something new. The Witcher 3 didn't really do anything new, it just did something really well. And this final honourable mention is kind of a double whammy, and it leaves us at a nice neat 10 games total mentioned. If I was making a top 10, this is what they would be, but I'm obviously spending less time on these than the top 5, and I'm also not ordering these. Do we credit PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds for the often overstated explosion of Battle Royale games that really aren't as widespread as the internet would have you believe, as it came first and brought the genre into the public eye? Or do we give Fortnite the nod for solidifying its stranglehold on the public consciousness and expanding into a media phenomenon? Fortnite is undoubtedly one of the most popular games going right now, and if you think it should be on this list, then I think that's a very reasonable stance to take, but allow me to explain. For one thing, Fortnite seems to owe its existence and a lot of its integral parts to the initial popularity of PUBG, which did almost everything Fortnite does now a year or so earlier. And even then, when Fortnite came out, it didn't explode immediately. It took well into 2018 for it to really start having an effect, and while it's undoubtedly a massive deal now, is it really changing much about the industry? It's had a lot of crossover events with other media IPs such as Marvel, which is certainly pretty interesting, but we haven't had enough time to see what effect that will have, and the only other significant innovation I can see it making is its handling of skins and battle passes and all that jazz. It's fair to say that the later you release into a decade, the more of a struggle you're going to have to see your importance fully realised in that decade. That's going to make my number 5 on this list look a bit weird at first, but again, I think I can justify myself. And again, it's all opinions. Hey, opinions, they're fun. This is mine, that's all. I wouldn't deny its importance at all, but I think it's come into its own a bit too late. It's in a weird position where, despite releasing it in the past decade, I actually think it could have a decent shot at being one of the most important games of this decade. A bit like League of Legends for the decade before it, but just barely not. Consider both of these picks kind of my honorary number 6. I'm not sure which one to pick because PUBG is kind of the chubby screaming hen that squeezed out the large battle pass shaped egg that would hatch into Fortnite. Yep, I'm rolling with that. Anyway, it's been 7.5 minutes and people are going to complain like they've got somewhere to be. So it's time to move on with the main body of the video, and be warned, much like standing behind me in the queue at Subway, some of my choices may shock and disturb you. That's a lie. I don't actually think many of these choices are very controversial, but I've had that joke written down for a long time and I just kind of really wanted to use it. That being said, you should be warned about spoilers because there's probably going to be at least some for some of the games I talk about. So, you know, here's number 5. While it came out the same year as Fortnite, Breath of the Wild's impact could be felt as soon as it came out. In fact, I'd argue it could be felt even before then. Just knowing that Nintendo were taking such a massive departure from the traditional Zelda formula, and the fact that they dedicated almost an entire E3 in 2016 to this game, let you know that this game was intended to be a big deal. Such dedication to one title for a whole E3 was unprecedented. Breath of the Wild changed the course of one of gaming's most legendary franchises, as can be seen from the fact that a sequel in the same style was announced in 2019 and had the whole world buzzing. It's also birthed its own Hyrule Warriors spin-off and seems to be the start of a whole new timeline for the Zelda series. But beyond that, I think it also raised the bar for open world games. The Witcher 3 came out 2 years earlier and was a very good game, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, and you can hear my full thoughts on this in my Witcher 3 analysis video on my channel, it wasn't by its open world that it succeeded. In fact, The Witcher 3 as an open world game pales in comparison to Breath of the Wild in my opinion. Even though The Witcher 3 has 2 years on it, Breath of the Wild changed the course of its own franchise in a very big and dramatic way and did more to innovate as an open world game. I got a few comments on my 10k subscriber special about Breath of the Wild, another video that's probably very important to watch to hear more detailed thoughts about the Breath of the Wild versus The Witcher 3 debate, where people speculated that because I loved it so much, I must love Skyrim too. Maybe Skyrim is one of my 10 out of 10 games. Let me say this with the utmost clarity. Breath of the Wild makes Skyrim look like a block of fucking wood. I have never had a particularly high opinion of Skyrim. I think a lot of games that came out around the same time as it did what it was trying to do way better, but Breath of the Wild is on a whole other level of outclassing Skyrim. I think it was the game to finally make unmodded Skyrim officially obsolete. Whether that's a statement as to this game's greatness or Skyrim's, in my opinion, hugely overratedness, I don't know, but I'm very thankful for it regardless. The Last of Us is the game you show your boomer dad who still thinks that video games are a stupid medium for silly poopy little children to prove to him that, actually dad, gaming is for adults. He's definitely right, gaming is still a stupid medium for silly poopy little children, but if you showed him The Last of Us, you could proper gaslight him. Consider this entry somewhat interchangeable with whatever the most important Uncharted game is considered to be, because I feel like both games achieve the same things. They can be credited with creating a more widespread appreciation of video games as art and video games as cinema. There are so many movie-like moments and set pieces in The Last of Us that if you showed a relative who had no interest in video games, they'd probably be quite impressed by. One that really stands out to me in the first game is accidentally triggering a trap that leaves you hanging upside down and having to shoot up a small horde of zombies while you're dangling there. If a family member who still thought video games were dumb saw this, they might think something along the lines of, "Whoa, them computer games are pretty gnarly actually," before going back to complaining about horse racing, or whatever the fuck it is old people do nowadays. Uncharted seems to be even more chock full of these movie-like set pieces. It's basically a Naughty Dog calling card at this point, a bit like overworking your employees. The Last of Us was the most popular game at the time to have had such a mature and well-executed story. It woke a lot of people up to the potential that video games have, and you can see its influence spreading in lots of places, perhaps most notably 2018's God of War. You want an idea of how important The Last of Us is? Look at the absolutely maniacal extent to which people on both sides overreacted about the sequel. Jesus, pick up an instrument or something. Since The Last of Us, I believe we've been looking at a much more cinematic games industry, and as much as it surprises me to say it, I actually think that's been a pretty good trend. But I would like a new one soon. Maybe toucans? I feel like video games could use a lot more toucans in the 2020s. I have not played Undertale. It is one of my greatest sins as a supposed elite gamer. However, I know almost everything about Undertale because of how massive it was. It's part of the reason I never played it, because you simply couldn't escape the spoilers unless you played it week 1 or went off-grid entirely, which, to be fair, in 2015 was probably a really good shout for me. God, what an awful year in my life. I know that there are 3 possible endings. I know that the genocide route culminates in a battle with Sans. I know who Toriel, Undyne, Flowey, Papyrus, and so many other characters are, and I know that Toby Fox is good at literally everything, and it fucks me off hugely. Undertale was absolutely monstrous when it came out. It took over meme culture. Social media sites were flooded with references, fan art, and opinions on the game. It's fair to say that it's one of the most important indie games, if not the most important indie game ever. It absolutely erupted in internet culture as an iconic piece of media, and it's gotten to the point where its notoriety has earned creator Toby Fox a meeting with Super Smash Bros. Director Masahiro Sakurai so that they could work together on putting a Mii costume of Sans in Smash. That's actually crazy. He's now working on Deltarune, this kind of spiritual successor, pseudo-sequel type thing that's likely to be a very big deal this decade. This game innovated in its mechanics, in the way that you can spare your enemies in encounters, and the way that it combines bullet hell mechanics with its RPG combat, and it was an absolute revelation for indie games. Dare I say, they're taken a lot more seriously now, thanks to the existence of Undertale. And also, to a lesser extent, thanks to Shovel Knight. So, shout outs to Shovel Knight. I love Shovel Knight. Much like Undertale, I have not played Dark Souls, and I'm aware that I'm seriously compromising my status as an elite gamer here by saying this, but sometimes a game's reputation just precedes it, and you get to the point where you feel like you've heard so much about a game that you don't even need to play it. Everyone has talked about it so frantically and at such lengths that you feel like you've probably already experienced a lot of the best parts of it. Or if you did experience those best parts, your experience would be tarnished by having heard about them before. I promise this is the only other game on this list I haven't played, but even then, you often don't need to have directly experienced something to grasp how important it is. This might shock you guys, but I wasn't actually there at MLK's speech, okay? I had laundry on that day. That's my excuse for having not played Dark Souls. As much as almost everything about it appeals appeals to me. My excuse is the having heard a lot about the game thing, not the laundry thing. Maybe it's a weak excuse, but it's also justification for it being number 2 on this list. Dark Souls has been treated as the messiah of video games at large for a while now. The difficulty curves and boss fights of From Software's Soulsborne and Sekiro games have become the stuff of elite gamer legend. Soulsborne has practically become a genre of its own off the back of this game. Dark Souls seems to have reminded us all of the beauty of difficulty in video games and how, when handled well, it can create the kinds of game experiences you tell stories about for years. People use the Soulsborne games as the measuring stick for experiences that will put hair on your elite gamer chest. They have become a craze, with every game that wants to test their players implementing Souls-like combat, where you'll have to carefully observe your opponent's patterns and pick your spots wisely, lest you be crushed into elite gamer dust. Its influence is clear, and anyone wanting to prove their mettle in I've accidentally written down anyone wanting to prove their mettle in the gaming. And I'm just going to leave it like that because it's really funny. Anyone wanting to prove their mettle in the gaming will consider a Soulsborne game to be their first port of call. I'm pretty settled on getting the next one that comes out myself, though I do want to do so completely blind so I can experience the crushing difficulty and immaculate world building and world design that I hear so many rave about by myself with no prior knowledge to spoil the fun. In short, I'm looking forward to the gaming. There should never have been any doubt. Minecraft is Fortnite if it released 7 years earlier and was about smooth Lego. Is it even a game? I hear you mockingly asking after making the excellent decision to watch my old video in which I ponder that very question. Yes, that's my third other video plug in this video alone. I'm not even done yet, I've got to pay the bills. My answer to that question is that I choose to call Minecraft a game because I don't think it's unreasonable to call it a game despite everything I say in that video, and because it makes life easier for me if I just conform. There's a lesson we could all learn there. Not one that we should, but one that we could. I'll give you the baby's first ludology lesson version now regardless. Minecraft has become more than a game. It's become a part of culture. I walked into my local Toys R Us a few years back, shortly before it folded, and found the shelves stacked with cute little Creeper and Enderman plushies before I found Mario, Sonic, or MasterChef. Minecraft is still being streamed on Twitch and uploaded to YouTube to millions of viewers, and there are still new Minecraft memes coming out almost a decade later.
You're not an intellectual. You're a fake and a fraud.
The game is evergreen. It doesn't die, it simply seems to regenerate like the Doctor from Doctor Who, if, again, he was made out of smooth Lego. Oh shit. So many never-ending games that are intended to have hours sunk into them with no end in sight while you just chill out and have fun with your buds owe their existence to Minecraft. Nothing has sold t-shirts or merchandise this decade like Minecraft has. Nothing has had cringy YouTube music parodies dedicated to it like Minecraft has. Nothing has consistently drawn in viewers and attention online this decade like Minecraft has. It's literally the best-selling game ever. I know I said I wasn't using sales as a metric, but that is undeniable. Minecraft is an icon of game design, up there now with the likes of Tetris and Pac-Man. It's without a doubt the most important game that's released in the past 10 years, and honestly, I don't think it was ever even much of a close debate. And there you have it, what I believe to have been the 5 most important games of the 2010s. What do you think will be the most important games of this decade? I think it might be Among Us 2, only it's a DC crossover with Batman characters, and you can only play it via holograms uploaded straight to your brain by Disney, who now rule the world. The only resistance standing against them being the Amazon workers, who are forced to pilot a giant scorpion mech by Jeff Bezos, who's become so rich that he's bought telepathy. But I would actually like to know what you think were the 5 most important games of the last decade. As long as you're not a dick about it, that is. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I am genuinely interested. This isn't just typical YouTuber interaction bait. This video was an amalgamation of a few lists that I've written over on my Patreon. I write these lists every couple of months, and they are Patreon exclusive, and you can read them by subscribing at the lower tier for as low as £4 a month, or dollars, or whatever it is. I don't intend on tarnishing the exclusivity of my Patreon content very often, but it's been a few months, and I thought it was good content, and I was hoping this video might serve as a decent incentive for people to sign up, especially because there's a new series series starting next month, and with it will come a new cheapest £1 Patreon tier. As people subscribed at that tier will eventually be able to vote on videos related to that series. It'll make sense when it comes out. The other video going up next month will be a retrospective review of every game I've played this year, ones that came out this year and older releases, called 2020 in Review. This is hopefully the start of an annual series, so I hope you'll look forward to that, and especially the new series as much as I am. I said earlier that the Minecraft video plug was not the last plug of the video, so if you'll indulge me for just one more, apparently a lot of people missed the Crash 4 video that went up last month. I worked really hard on it, but apparently it wasn't showing up in people's sub boxes and YouTube just wasn't pushing it out very much. So hey, if you feel like checking it out now, or if you missed it, then there it is. It'd be really sweet if you go and give it a little click and a watch. And I hate doing this because it sounds so cliche, but I guess at this point I have to ask, hey, if you're particularly interested in the stuff I do, then when you subscribe, or if you're already subscribed, make sure to click the bell next to the subscribe button so you'll get a notification every time a new video comes up. I really didn't think I'd have to ask for that, but apparently YouTube isn't showing my stuff to people who are already subscribed, so that will ensure that you don't miss anything, and it's good for me as well, so that'd be really neat. I also would like to present to you Daniel FIALA, a comedy skit slash sketch slash many things channel that just reached over 1,000 subscribers as of the recording of this video and is still criminally underrated. There's this great video called Should Biden Have Picked Hitler as VP Instead, where he just takes apart this absolutely asinine tweet in the most perfectly delivered slow burn video I've seen in a while. He does a lot of super fun wacky skits such as Star Wars, But I'm Everybody, and I think you should go check him out or else I will cry. Thank you as always to my high tier patrons and anyone else who's about to donate to the Patreon. Cheesy Chip, Mike Archer, Mike Craig, Captain L, Good Chicken, Chris Monk, Derek Drost, Flashing Fire, Cousin Boneless, Tale of the Toaster, Waldington, Justin Mills, Heist Van Duren, Garm, and Super. And I will see you again next month. I'm very much looking forward to what's to come.